Hello everyone, Jonathan here again with another historic firearm from the Royal Armouries collection. Now this one actually follows on from last week's, which we don't do deliberately per se. These are meant to stand alone, but as it happens, I wanted to show you this. Now I mentioned in the previous video, and this is the connection, that Dieudonné Saive, the famous FN Herstal designer, had in the late 40s two designs on the go. One was the SLEM, the self-loading experimental model rifle for the UK, which was cancelled in 1947. And I mentioned that the reason, or one of the reasons that was cancelled, was in May 1947 a decision was taken to proceed with two British bullpup designs, so with the trigger moved in front of the breech, making the whole weapon shorter for the same length of barrel. Now the EM1, there were two rifles, EM1 and EM2. EM1 was discontinued, too much work to continue, and the EM2 was the more promising design. So that went into trials from 1950 onwards against this. So before I show you this again in detail, this is the British entrant into those trials in 1950. This is the EM2 that I just mentioned. You can see that bullpup arrangement. It's a fairly well-known, if very rare, historic firearm. Features in my current book, British Bullpup Firearms, Thornycroft to SA80. Pretty heavily, 2 chapters on this puppy, because it was very important until it wasn't, because this too was cancelled, effectively discontinued in 1952, although trials were ongoing from 1950 through 1953. By that stage it was a formality, because, and we'll set this poor old lady aside, this is what was ultimately successful. And it is recognisably, I think, the FN FAL, or FAL if you prefer, Fusil Automatique Léger, light automatic rifle. And by the standards of the day, it kind of was relatively light, but this is its original form. Well, its true original form was actually in 7.92x33 Kurz, the short German assault rifle cartridge of the Second World War, and that was the concept. This was going to be a Belgian take on the Sturmgewehr. Originally called the Carabine Universelle, that's what this is. This is technically not an FN FAL, although it is the prototype, a prototype for it. This dates from 1950. Key differences from the ultimate FAL, well, like the model 1949 versus the SLEM, every single angle and cut on this is different from the production FAL, but the design is clearly that of the FAL. So lots of differences in detail. The cocking handle is, funnily enough, almost identical to the first pattern EM2's cocking handle, but that's getting a bit too detailed. But it's reminiscent of the Kalashnikov, for example, just a hook rather than the big round knob that became standard on the FAL, or the flat folding lever that was found initially on the Canadian FAL and then shortly thereafter on the production L1A1, because Britain adopted the FAL as noted after the EM2 was dropped. And incidentally, if you had to boil it down to 2 reasons, this won over the EM2 because of A, cost, and B, time. So time and money, isn't it always the way? Politics were a factor, but essentially this was going to be cheaper and quicker to get into service. And Britain was pretty alarmed about the prospect of having to go to war against the Soviets. And the fact that we still had bolt-action Lee Enfield rifles. So very forward-thinking to try to leapfrog technology and go for a reduced power cartridge, a true assault rifle, and a bullpup, in the end we had to sort of scale back our expectations. Now the cartridge, which I've just mentioned, is key, because this is in not the 792, but the British 280. There's the 280. You can already see perhaps that it's quite truncated, quite short. So reduced propellant charge, reduced velocity, reduced recoil energy means you can use it like a submachine gun. So Carabine Universelle really is the French term for the concept of the assault rifle. It's meant to be a universal carbine that will replace the rifle, or multiple rifles potentially in service, and the submachine gun. So you can use it from the shoulder in short bursts. That's what this cartridge was intended to allow. And you can see there that this is a shorter magazine, front to back, than the production FAL, which is of course chambered for the 7.62 NATO round, which we have on this old display board here. And I'll just compare the two for you, try and get my fat fingers out the way. So you can see that not only is it shorter overall lengthwise, the shoulder of the cartridge is considerably lower down next to that 7.62. So reduced powder capacity. And the biggest political aspect here was American influence over cartridges. Really, they did not want to compromise at all in terms of velocity, and hence we ended up with 7.62 NATO, and hence both the EM2 and the Carabine Universelle had to be redesigned for that longer, more powerful cartridge, which really compromised both designs. This was no longer a true assault rifle. This would have to be, in fact, in British service, we deleted the automatic capability entirely because it was seen to be now worthless. Yes, you could use it from the assault position, going into a trench or through a doorway, and most nations went for select fire capability on their FAL, but it made the rifles heavier, made them less controllable. So yeah, it was a bit of a blow, but FN came out on top in the end. I hope that was of interest to you. If you'd like to support our work here at the Armouries, we have links in the description where you can donate or become a member. If you like video games, go over to the GameSpot channel, because we have a long-running series now with them. And please do come and visit one of our 3 museum sites if you're in the UK, or as and when you can visit the UK. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.